13, I started teaching dance. At 16, I worked at the mall at the place called Cookie Jar. I lifeguarded. I scrubbed toilets. I'm telling you, I did whatever I could to earn enough money because I was getting the hell out of there. I finally got the courage up to go tell my dad and ask him for help. And I said, Dad, promise you won't tell anybody, but this is what's going on. And he didn't tell anybody and he didn't do anything. And at that moment, I thought, well, I'm going to have to take care of myself. Nobody's going to do it for me. And the next time my stepdad came into my room, I fought him and I kicked him and the look on his face. And that was the last time he ever touched me.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I am so good. How are you?
I am good. I am so happy to finally be talking with you.
Well, I feel the same way. And it's so interesting. People are so funny with social media. And I know talk for hours and I'm not going to keep you forever, but I know that people think, social media can be so fake and it can be so, it's just, everybody's good stuff out there. And I'm like, I have met the most incredible humans through social media, you being one of them. I mean, when I somehow came across you, I was just like, I need to know her on like a whole nother level. And
That's
I
how I felt
admire,
about you.
well, and thank you. And it's so cool to just have one thing that you take time for. And I know you are one of the busiest people out there. You always commenting, always encouraging. It says so much for just who you are as a person that you take the time, but it also means so much for the people on the receiving end, that you are
Thank you.
seeing that and you are honoring the content. And it means the world to me.
Thank you
So thank
so
you for that.
much.
Yeah.
I've had people go, "Oh my gosh, you comment on so many people's posts and stuff and you respond to so many people." But you know what? I know how when I was at my low point, when somebody would just take the time
Yeah.
to answer me or respond to
Yeah.
me, it really helped. And I know how
Yeah.
that feels. And so that's why I do my best to try to
Yeah.
respond. So thank you for just acknowledging that because I do
Absolutely.
my best. Like today, I'm so behind on so many
So am I.
things. Yeah.
Oh,
But
it's
it's like you
crazy.
do what you can do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. I mean, I just can't wait to what I really, you and I didn't chat back and forth about like a topic or anything like that. And what I feel in my heart that I want so desperately for my audience to hear is just your story. And I
Mm.
felt like I knew your story through your social. And when I got your book, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how much I just hung on to every single word. It was one of those few books that like I couldn't wait till the end of the day so I could get into bed to
Oh
continue
my
to read it.
goodness. You
Truly.
are amazing. Well, thank you so much for just taking the
Yeah.
time to read it.
Oh my gosh, it's so
Thank
amazing. So
you.
I want everybody to read it. And but here, I know we don't have all the time in the world, but will you just start out by kind of sharing your story? I know it's a lengthy one and it's in depth, and I don't know if there's a shorter than 6 hour version because it's so crazy. But will you kind of share like what happened and just your whole story and how you came to be who you are today and where you are today?
Oh, thank you. Well, it's so wild because I'm actually in Texas again now. I grew up in a small town that's a little bit further from where I am now. We just moved here. I was in LA for 31 years, and it's kind of crazy to be back in Dallas. And, sometimes
Wow.
I get in my office and on Zoom all day, and I'm like, oh, yeah, wait a minute. Where am I? I'm in Central Time now. But, I grew up in this small town and I had big dreams. I think from the time I was 8 years old, I was like, I know I want to move to LA and become a professional dancer. And,
Love it.
people kind of thought I was crazy for wanting to do that. And I think it was when MTV came out and I saw these
Yeah.
music videos and the dancing. And I was like, wait a minute, you can get paid to dance. So I
Right?
can get paid to do what I love. well, I got to figure out a way how I can do that. But so dancing to
Mhm.
me was such a big passion of mine. But I always say that pain kind of pushes you until your vision pulls you. And I definitely
Mhm.
had some painful experiences growing up. And looking back on those experiences, I'm actually grateful for that because it taught me
Absolutely.
so much, that I feel like pain has been my greatest teacher. And, my
Mhm.
parents divorced when I was young. My mom remarried to a man who sexually abused me. And when you're little and you trust someone, that it's a parent or a loved one, and you trust them, and then they do something like that and they tell you this is what dads are supposed to do, this is how dads teach their children, and in your gut you're like, this isn't right, but they're telling you no, this
Yeah.
is right. It teaches you not to follow or listen to your gut. And
Right.
so it's taken me a long
Wow.
time to learn to really listen to my gut. But
Yeah.
that pain, really, it didn't feel safe at home. And now, my stepfather's passed away. My mom and I have a great relationship now,
Mm.
and so do my dad and I. But when I was about 13, I actually went and told my dad. Now, my stepdad told me, don't tell anybody or I'm going to kill your mom. And I know this is kind of heavy for a
Yeah.
this is kind
Hey,
of a
let's
heavy
just go.
subject,
I'm all about getting right into it. Yes.
but
Oh
I mean, I
gosh.
believed him. I thought
Yeah.
he's big, he's strong, he would hurt my mom, who was, I
Mm.
just was my everything. And, meanwhile, my mom was working two jobs. We didn't have much money. There were lots of Christmases where she would say, we're not going to have presents this year. And thankfully the
Oh,
church would drop off money at our doorstep. And so I finally got the courage up to go tell my dad and ask him for help. And I said, Dad,
wow.
promise you won't tell anybody, but this is what's going on. And he didn't tell anybody and he didn't do anything. And at that moment, I thought, well,
He's
it
gonna have
taught
to.
me something. Well, I'm going to have to take care of myself. Nobody's going to do it
Mm.
for me. And the next time my stepdad came into my room, I fought him and I kicked him, and the look on his face. And that was the last time he ever touched me. And I still didn't feel safe at home. And what did feel good to me was doing more of what brought me joy. And my default it was to do whatever I could do to do better as a person and feel better. So I became a little bit of an overachiever. I was a straight A student in all honors
Yeah.
classes. I was like, class president. I was in the French club, secretary. You name it, I did it. I excelled in sports. I became the fastest runner in track. I set a record for running the 2 mile the fastest. In dance, I was not the best. I was the youngest, but I made company. We won our first
Yeah.
championship. And I thought, there is a way to feel better. There are things
Yeah.
I can do to feel good. And so that the
But
pain,
Amberly, like, how incredible that you as a child turned it into that versus numbing the pain or feeling better through drugs and alcohol or feeling better through, like that's miraculous.
well,
Truly.
it's, you know what, my brothers
Hmm.
grew up in the same household. They did turn to drugs and
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
And this isn't in my book, but my little brother sits
Mm.
on death row here in Texas
Mm.
because he was
Wow.
a sweet kid that didn't have any coping mechanisms, turned to
Yeah.
alcohol, then drugs, and it escalated. And he sits on death row. Actually, it's kind of crazy. It makes me my heart hurt. I got two letters from him, and it's on my list to write him. It's crazy. But yeah, I didn't turn to drugs and alcohol at that time in my life. I really became somebody who was like, I am going to do something with my life. And so at age 13, I started working. Well, at age 8, it's pretty crazy to think at age 8, I was already babysitting. It was crazy to think these families
Wow.
trusted me to
Right.
watch all of their kids at age 8. And
Gosh.
then at 13, I started teaching dance. At 16, I worked at the mall at the place called Cookie Jar.
Mhm.
I lifeguarded. I scrubbed toilets. I'm telling you, I did whatever I could to earn enough money because I was getting the hell out of there. I was like going to go after my dreams. And I saved up $1,200, packed up my little Suzuki Samurai. I'd, saved up enough money to put a down payment on a car and make payments on it. And I didn't have parents that were like, okay, well, we're going to go to LA with you and find a nice little apartment and get it furnished for you. It was like, my mom was like, why are you taking everything? You're going to be right back. And I'm like, no, mom, I am going to go I'm going to be a professional dancer. I'm going to go make something in my life. I'm out of here. I drove to my dad's, and my stepmom, the last thing she said to me was, Amberly, I think you're making a big mistake. And I was like, I didn't have encouragement. My dance teacher, who was my biggest mentor, and I love her dearly, she wanted me to stay because I was her best dance teacher. So she was losing her dance teacher. But I went, and ignorance is bliss. It was crazy. I didn't know what I was doing. But you know what?
Do you think though, you said it was hard for you to honor that whisper. I always say, listen to the whisper, that it's always guiding us. Do you think there was, because I had that same pull to California. I mean, when I was in 4th grade, I was going to ride my bike across the United States and move to California. And I ended up moving to California in kind of the depths of my despair at 21. But there was some type of pull. Do you think there was something there, even though you were going a million miles an hour and you feel like you weren't listening to your intuition? Do you feel like there was that knowingness, right? That was where
there was God on my side always.
Yes.
God was with me always. I remember where I feel closest to God. I mean, I grew up going to church, but where I felt most connected to God, my higher power, was when I was outside in nature. And man, I feel like running track is when I really started talking to God. I mean, we had conversations, and I feel like, in my roughest spots, even, God was always, so that whisper was a force greater than myself that was always with me. And I had, I remember going, I was like, I got to get a job. I got to get some jobs because I got $1,200 and I got to have money to pay rent and keep a roof over my head. And I stayed in this little crappy motel. When I first got there, there were cigarette burns on the wall, and I would prop the chair up under the doorknob, because I felt like the guy at the front desk might try to come in my room. And I remember waking up the first night that I was there, and I woke up and the top was off my car, and I was like, what's different with my car? I'm like, oh, someone stole the top off of it. So for the first year,
gosh,
crazy. And I didn't have enough money to buy another top. So I drove around LA for the first year I was there with no top on the car. And I auditioned for my first music video, and I got it. And so there I was thinking, my dreams are coming true. I'm with MC Hammer dancing in his music video. Can't touch this. And then
that's awesome.
It was incredible. It didn't pay much. We shot for 23 hours straight, and I was in heaven. And my biggest goal was to get on scholarship at this dance studio. And I thought, well, if I go there and take as many classes as I can the first month, I'm not the best dancer, but if I work harder and they can see how hard I'm working, maybe they'll give me a chance. I just got to make sure I show up, stand in the front of the class. Let me tell you, the first ballet class, the teacher had a cane. She was about 80 years old. She started pointing that cane at me, telling me she was going to cut my arms and legs off if I didn't point my toes. And I left that class crying. I remember going around the corner and thinking, okay, I could give up now, but I can't go back. There's no option B. This is it. So I went back into the very next ballet class she had, and the look on her face was like, wow, okay, I guess this girl's serious. She came back for more. And I went back and I went back and I kept trying, and I made scholarship, and I was the worst dancer on scholarship. But at the end of the year, and I didn't go anywhere except for the dance studio and this little tiny apartment that I had.
Yeah.
The end of the year, I was awarded like most excelled, from going from the worst to, because I was required to take the most classes. And I think that, just last weekend, I got to see my dance teacher, and
Yeah.
my niece takes classes from her still here in Texas.
Wow.
And I just honor her. And her and my track coach taught me so much more than how to dance.
Yeah.
She mentored me. She taught me how to run a business. I mean,
Mm.
when I saw her last weekend, I hugged her and I cried and I said, "You're my greatest mentor. You've taught me so much about life and about how to run a business and be an entrepreneur." And I remember, little things that she would say that sounded harsh in the moment
Yeah.
really taught me that grit and perseverance.
Yes.
And I remember
Yes.
she said, "I don't care if your dog died. I don't care if you lost your best friend. When you put that needle on the record and you turn around to teach your class, you better have a smile on your face, because it's about them, not you. You
Mm.
better do a good class."
Wow.
And it was like, okay, like and I was taught, if you're
Yeah.
early, you're on time. If you're
Yes.
late, you're cut. Like, we couldn't
Yeah.
be late. I remember I was late one time and I got cut
Mm.
out of that
Never
dance
again.
number. So little things that she taught me: how to run a business, how to show up, how to be early, how to be grateful, how to be kind, have taken me so far. In my whole life, I lived on the dance floor and then on the gym floor, had a successful business in the fitness industry. I had trainers that worked for me. I mean, I was a single mom for a long time and still built this
Wow.
big business up, and met my husband. Life was going good. And I finally felt like, man, I'm living the California dream finally,
Yeah.
through some
Yeah.
rough times, a horrible divorce, child custody, terrible.
Oh.
And I was like, life is good. We were told we wouldn't be able to have a baby. We had a baby. So I had two healthy daughters, a husband that loved me, a booming
Wow.
business. And man, everything changed in the blink of an eye when I was hit by an SUV coming home from work on my motorcycle. And, you know,
Mm.
being hit and seeing it so vividly, like remembering every moment, sliding down Ventura Boulevard and coming to a stop. And I remember looking down at my leg, and, I'd just come from work. So I had leggings on. I thought it felt like my leggings were the only thing keeping my leg on my body. It was just broken into
Oh.
pieces. My femoral artery was severed. So blood was everywhere. And in that moment, I'm laying there. And one of my first thoughts was, well, I might have to train clients on crutches for a while. Like that it's crazy what goes through your mind.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah, it's like you can't process the reality. I feel like never ever have I been in a situation like that, to that extreme, but I've certainly been in enough situations where you think this isn't as big of a deal as it turns out to be. It's
Oh,
not going to alter
I had
the
no
course of
idea.
my life. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I had no idea. But it was interesting looking back on it, the things I was thinking only about other people. Like because that was my first thought, like, I'm going to have, this sucks. I might have to train clients on crutches. Then I was like, oh crap, man, my husband's going to be so pissed. I had his brand new backpack on, and I'm like, his backpack's going to be filled with pulled pork. I had a pulled pork sandwich that my client brought me. So I was thinking my husband's going to be upset. Then I was
Oh my
cussing,
God.
saying, I was screaming out like F word,
Yeah.
like, call 911. And then I was thinking, man, my Methodist mom's not going to be proud of the way that I'm cussing like this. And I'm like, here I am literally dying on the street.
Yeah.
And everything was perfectly lined up, timed out. Do you know the paramedics were right down the street before they got the call? They could see the accident and they
Wow.
were running to the accident. A guy made a tourniquet on my leg and basically saved my life because I was bleeding
Wow.
out. there was a nurse that drove by, and she came over and she grabbed my hands and she's like, I'm a nurse. I need you to sit here. I need you to breathe with me. So she calmed me down. Paramedics loaded me up and I'm in the back of the ambulance. And I
Angels
am,
everywhere.
oh, I just, I was squeezing the paramedic's leg and I was thinking, looking at him, you know, when you look at somebody to kind of go, is this okay? Like, am I going to be okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he would not make eye contact with me. And I thought, oh my gosh, well, I might be dying. And then the pain was so bad. I was like, well, I wish I would just die. It was bad.
Right.
We get to the hospital and the room is filled with cops. My husband's a cop, and news travels fast when you're on the brotherhood or sisterhood of the police force. They thought maybe I was a cop that had gone down. And I hear this just wailing. And I'm like, what is that? It was my husband. He's a big, strong guy. I had never seen or heard him cry. And I thought, oh my God, he's freaking out. I yelled across the room because I'm taped down to a gurney. I said, honey, get over here. I need you to be strong for me. Because I really needed to know, God, is he going to be okay to take care of our kids?
Right. Right.
And that's the last thing I remember before they put me in induced coma. And I woke up, and the first thing I learned,
in the coma?
I was in for a little over a week. And man, I don't recommend being in a coma. You wake up and it's like you got tubes.
You can laugh about this.
I mean, you got tubes going down your throat. And I was trying to rip, I wake up and I'm fighting. I wake up fighting, trying to pull these tubes out. And the nurse is like, oh, honey, don't do that. You can't do that. And then they're like, I think she's trying to say something. And the first thing I wrote, they gave me a little notepad and I wrote on there, get off my tubes. See, my husband was leaning over the bed, tears in his eyes and cutting the circulation. I couldn't get air because I couldn't get any air. And
like, I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. And then I said, the second thing I wrote was, don't tell Savannah. And that was my oldest daughter. And she was on an 8th grade school trip. And I had no idea how long I'd been out. And then they said, I'm sorry, we're going to have to amputate your leg. You only have a 1% chance of saving it. And I thought, well, 1%. Well, there's still a chance. Whew. Yeah. They said absolutely. So you mean there's still a chance? Kind of like that movie. Right. They probably thought like Dumb and Dumber, that movie. So you're saying there's a chance?
So you're saying there's a chance.
And I was like, well, we got to find a doctor who's willing to take that chance with me. Man, that took an act of God. That took a lot of pulling strings, knowing some powerful doctors with connections, got me transferred to Cedars where Dr. Wiss, who this amazing man, saved my leg. 34 surgeries in total. I had a team of doctors, but 34 surgeries, and they were able to save my leg. And
34. I mean, can we just take a moment there? Like, that amount of surgeries over what period of time? That's insane.
Well, I was in the hospital the first time. Well, in total, about 3.5 months. The first time I was there about 2 months. And, being completely bedridden, I couldn't use the bathroom on my own. My leg was held together by these metal bars called like a halo. And I would have a surgery, then I'd have a day to recover. Then I'd have a surgery and I'd have a day to recover. And I was just taking it one day at a time, focusing on, well, what can I do to be my strongest to get through this next day? And it was crazy. And that's one of the reasons, like, we thought about moving closer to family because we didn't have any family. I mean, I've got my one of my best friends who's like my adopted California mom, and I had incredible clients and friends, but we didn't have family. And so one of the reasons we stayed in LA for, after that was because I couldn't be away from my doctors and these specialists. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
about 3.5 months after the accident, being an athlete, I'd been hurt. I'd broken my leg. I'd torn muscles. I'd had sprains. I knew that, you heal, you recover, you work hard, and you get better. The only thing is, I wasn't getting better. I was in
Yeah.
excruciating pain every day, but I was still pushing. I was still working as hard as I could to get better. They said it'd take 2 years to learn to walk again. And I'm like, man, they don't know me. That can't be right. That's, let me
Sounds like
prove
way
them
too
wrong.
long. Oh,
Way too long. And
love
so at 3.5 months, I was so proud to be upright on my crutches. And had a doctor's appointment. And I thought, man, this doctor is going to be so proud of me. I mean, I look scary. I'm completely, scarred up at this point from my hip all the way down. My leg is like a balloon. I can't even put a shoe on that foot. But I was upright on crutches, and I go into the appointment, and he looks at me, examines me a little bit, and runs out of the room, doesn't say a word. And I looked at my husband and I said, well, that's not what I was expecting.
Right.
And he comes back and he gives me the worst news of my life. He says, you've got something very serious. And I'm kind of like, duh, dude, I got hit by an SUV,
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah, I
Three and a
know.
half months, all these surgeries. Yeah.
He said, no, you've got complex regional pain syndrome. He said, your life is never going to be the same. He goes,
Oh,
are you the kind of person that likes to push through pain? And I said kind of proudly, well, yeah,
yeah.
thinking like, man, he can tell I've got a PhD and suck it up. Like, yeah, I got this. And he said, no, you need to go back home and get in your wheelchair. And I said, okay, well, for how long? And he said, forever. He said, you're going to be permanently disabled. You'll never be able to work again. You'll
Is this the
probably
same doctor? Is it Weiss?
no, Dawn Wiss is the one that put my leg back together. This
Okay.
was like a general practitioner that kind of
Gotcha.
assesses what I'm going to
Okay.
need. And he was giving me like an assessment of what kind of medical needs I would need in the future for surgeries. And
Yeah.
then when I got all his paperwork back, I'm like, why is he giving me something for if my leg is amputated? I was like, doesn't he know I saved my leg? I'm
Right.
keeping it. Like I'm not getting rid of my leg. I'm keeping it. Well, about a year into being diagnosed with CRPS, which is dubbed the suicide disease, by the way, because it's ranked highest on the pain scale, and there is no known cure. And I tried all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. So I'd never done a drug in my life, never tried drugs, never wanted to, never even liked to take aspirin. I mean, I went from that to getting induced with ketamine to try to reboot my nervous system and
Wow.
reboot this, pain. I had a spinal infusion where they go in and put metal leads in your back. I had spinal blocks, spinal radio frequency, Eastern Western medicine. At one point, I was on 73 homeopathic pills a day and 11 different prescription. And I was like, screw this, man. I'm not taking anything else. I went off everything cold turkey, which was very dangerous because I could have gone into seizures because of
Yeah.
withdrawal. And then I had a glass of wine and I realized, dang, man, this kind of helps with the pain. Why didn't doctors just tell me, just have a glass of
Right.
wine?
Have a glass of wine.
Well, from being an athlete to quickly finding myself drinking every day. And I knew, well, this isn't the healthiest thing to do. But if this is what I have to do to get through the pain,
Yeah.
then I'll just do it. And I became an alcoholic. And I
So you know
knew,
what's so crazy? Going back to the beginning of our conversation with, not at a younger age turning to drugs, turning to alcohol, which was my story. I've always believed, first of all, there's so many similarities just between our psyches, and how we operate and the perfectionism and that we're going to be the
yeah,
best at everything. And I see, and I really almost want to conduct like a big study on this, that genetically, I believe that it is the same. People say you're genetically predisposed to alcoholism or drug addiction. I
mm-hmm,
believe that it's not alcoholism or drug addiction. It is something genetically that just makes us driven, right? Driven, whether it's, for me as a child, it was driven towards being the best at everything. But then when I found drugs and alcohol, it's like it just switched over to that. When I finally got sober, it just switched back to like, well, now let me go be the best at this and this and this and this and this. And so we got to channel it the right way, you know?
Yes. Yes.
I
I
mean, and
completely agree.
we can channel it into changing the freaking world if we want.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think people are doomed to be, oh, well, you're an alcoholic, your family has addiction in it. It's like your family might have alcoholism and addiction in it, but that might be your biggest blessing ever if we use it correctly. Right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I completely agree. I mean, and I think that a lot of, recovering or recovered, addicts, alcoholics are so driven
Yeah.
and really good at being resilient and
Yeah.
really good at figuring out other ways of doing things and getting what they want.
Yes, we're good at that.
Yes, yes. And so, yeah, I got 2016. I got sober. I was at a place where I was like, man, how did a good girl like me end up like this? Like, it was bad. And I thought my husband doesn't deserve this. But I was thinking, my kids could find another mom. He could find another wife. I was really starting to think,
Yeah.
this is not, I can't go on living in pain like this.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I was about to give up. And there was just this glimmer. I think we all have this light within us, and mine was just barely a flicker. And I had kind of turned my back on God. Well, he hadn't turned his back on me. And I got on my knees and I just prayed, please help me.
Yeah.
And then I called a friend. I called a client of mine that I knew had been to meetings, and man, I had so much shame. I was so just humiliated, but I was desperate. And there's a gift in desperation.
The gift of desperation. Absolutely.
And it made me reach out, and I asked for help. And I tell you, if you're listening and you're like, man, I need help, reach out and ask for help, because it saved my life. And I'm not afraid to ask for help. As a kid, when I talked about I asked for help and I didn't get it, that really stopped me for a long, long time for asking for help. I always had to be the rock, the strong one, the fixer. And I pushed all that pain down, and I pushed all those feelings down. And man, pain demands to be heard. It will come out in everything you do, the way you love, the way you lead, your relationships, and everything you do. It demands to be heard. And so it's not easy. Oh my God, the first year of my sobriety, I think I cried every day, when I had also shut those feelings down for a long time, because when my stepdad would get me to a point where he'd make me cry, he would say, I knew I got you. I knew I could make you cry. And so I'd think, well, I'm never crying again.
Right. Yep.
So I'm
I used to
finally
pride myself on that. I don't cry. I don't cry in anything. Nothing makes me cry. I haven't cried in this many years. I mean, I think back when I used to say that, I'm like, oh my gosh. And now I'm just, I think I've cried 3 times in the last 45 minutes,
I mean,
so hard. I can remember my sister in early sobriety, and this was just so, it speaks to early sobriety. She said, I feel like a cat with no skin. And I'm like, absolutely. You just feel like every nerve ending is exposed, which you can relate to literally with your leg, right? But like, that's how your entire being feels in early sobriety. And it's not an easy road, but
my God, it's not an easy road. And I went from sneaking my drinking. So I was hiding that. And I remember, saying, no, I hadn't had anything to drink, and feeling like this is what I got to do, and trying to pull it all together, and like trying to hold it all up, and make it look okay on the outside, and on the inside, I was just dying on the inside. And then I had told my husband, I think I need help. I got a problem. He goes, oh, you don't have a problem. Anybody would have a drink if they were dealing with what you were dealing
Yes.
with. And he had a lot of shame because he was a lieutenant commander with a highway patrol. How could his wife be an alcoholic or have a drinking
Right.
problem? No way. I said, yeah, I think I need to go to one of those meetings. And he said, oh, you don't want to be around those people. And so I went from sneaking my drinking to sneaking going to get recovery. And
Wow.
let me tell you, there was nothing scarier than deciding to go to a meeting and just watching these women walk into a room and kind of following, not know where I am. And I went in and I sat in the back of the room, and I had to sit on my hands because I had tremors so bad.
Yeah.
And I sat
Same.
on my,
First meeting. Somebody
yeah,
offered me a cup of coffee and I couldn't take it because it would have spilled all over me. Yeah.
yeah. And I sat in between a nun and a cowgirl, this lady with a cowboy hat, like a nun, full on in like a nun. Like I was like,
Welcome
where
to
the
sobriety in LA.
yes. Yes.
I love sobriety in California.
Oh my gosh. I heard hope.
Yeah.
I heard people share what I felt and heard how they got through it and saw their strength. And I thought, that's what I want. I want, there's got to be more to life than what I'm doing right now. My daughters do deserve more, and they've been my biggest inspiration. And, it hadn't been an easy road, but I completely reinvented myself, decided to write a book. Didn't, I didn't even own a computer 5 years ago. And so
I
my
love
whole
that.
business was, by word of mouth, and I didn't use a computer. I didn't have any social media. And I started telling a
How
couple people.
many at this point when you get sober, let me just ask this. How long after the accident is that? How old are your daughters? And where are you with the pain now that you don't have the alcohol to kind of numb it out?
Well, when I had the accident, my youngest daughter had just turned 2 years old, and
Oh,
my
wow.
oldest daughter was 15. So
Okay.
big, ages, important ages for little girls to have their mom taken away for a while. And
Yeah.
now my oldest daughter is 26, and she's actually going to medical school at Yale. And
Oh my God.
she says it was because of all the surgeries I went through that inspired her to go practice medicine. And my youngest daughter is 13. She'll be 14 this weekend. And she's a little entrepreneur, and she's got the biggest heart and grit. And man, she can be stubborn. And she is amazing. She already has her own business. She's a equestrian training for the Olympics. It was just my 50th birthday, and she imported a beta fish, like a real fish from Indonesia, with her money.
Oh my
That is an
God.
amethyst color because she knows I love amethyst, and that represents sobriety. So talk about a heart. I mean, this
Wow.
child, yeah, she's amazing. Um, so I look at what, I decided I don't want to be a victim. I want to be the victor of my life. And I want to be an example of resilience for my daughters. I want for them to see me and know that they can get through challenges, and know that there are ways of getting through adversity, and that they can be comfortable in their own skin, and they can find serenity and joy and happiness and have the life of their dreams. Even if their circumstances are narrow, they can have the life of their dreams. And so it took me a while to accept all the scars that I have and the way that I look, but I can say that I am comfortable with that now. And I just talked to a friend of mine on the phone yesterday who has this incredible story. And he's like, I'm thinking about sharing it. And I said, you know what? I think it's real important to share from a scar and not an open wound, and make sure
Absolutely.
you've healed from it and then you go for it. Cause I can't tell you how many people still like really make fun of me on TikTok, and because of the way that I look and all the
Ugh,
scars. And
TikTok is brutal. TikTok is
yeah,
brutal.
I just,
Um,
I kind of giggle at it. I mean, and
yeah,
then on
yeah, you
Facebook
have
the
to.
other day, I posted a picture and you could, I had a skirt on and it showed my leg, and people that already know me, they were commenting on it. And then it got down to this one, it was probably this young kid. He goes, yeah, but did anybody see the way her calf looks? And I was just like, and he did like this ugly squiggly face, like, what the
Right,
hell is that? And it's like, it can be shocking. I can't tell you how many
right.
times I've walked by. There was this one time. So I was at the Four Seasons there in Westlake, and I was with a girlfriend, and we had our bikinis on, and we were walking by the pool, and there were these two dudes, and I could see their eyes, like they looked, and I could see them
Ah,
panning down, like looking, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna be jumping or throwing up here in a minute. And sure enough, they're panned down and they're, oh, like they saw
yeah.
my leg, and they're like, oh, good Lord, what happened to her?
Oh,
But it took, it was really Dr. Wiss who
yeah.
saved my leg, that really helped me start to love myself and my leg again. Because I actually, it was about maybe a year after the accident, and I could not, the pain was so bad. I was like, what? I can't live like this. We need to go ahead and amputate it. And I went into him. I said, you know what, Dr. Wiss, I appreciate all you've done. I appreciate all these surgeries you have done, but this is just too much pain. I got to get on with my life. We need to
Yeah.
amputate it. He said, we can't do that. You've got CRPS and it could spread. That's not the solution. And
Oh,
he
I
did
mean, even
something.
when you make a decision to amputate it, thinking I've got to make the hardest decision of my life, but the pain will end. He says that's not an option.
That's not an option. And it was
Wow.
exactly what I needed to hear, because it
Yeah.
really helped me get in acceptance with the
Mhm.
pain and really embrace it instead of fighting it. And
Mhm.
I was able to, once you accept where you are and accept what's going on, then you can start to make better decisions with your life. And so instead of trying to stuff it down and ignore it, I was like, okay, well, what does my body need? What do I need? Um,
Yeah.
then he sat in front of me and he put my leg in his lap. Like, he had on this nice white coat, and usually they'll put your leg up on the table. And he put my leg in his lap. And my first thought was, man, I can't believe he's put my ugly, disgusting leg on his nice white coat. And he
Mhm.
looked at it like it was his masterpiece. Like, he just
Wow.
held it and he looked at it like, wow, look at what we did. This is amazing. And tears just started streaming down my face. And I thought, wow, if he can look at it like that,
Yeah.
maybe I can learn to love it too. And something
Mm.
shifted in me. And I think it's so important to have somebody, I mean, that accepts you or loves you or believes in you, that sparks some confidence in you
Yeah.
before you can do that yourself. And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm a firm believer in having mentors or
Yeah.
coaches, connecting with other people who have been through it and gotten to the other side, and not just in real life, but on social media too. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons the minute that I saw you on Instagram, I'm like, I love her. She's my
Oh,
people. Because you share what it is to get through all kinds of challenges, whether
yeah.
it's health or business or sobriety or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And so I really admire that about you. And I think it's so important to surround yourself with people who keep it real and they tell you
Yeah.
how to get to point A to point B,
Yeah.
and provide that roadmap for you.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't been an easy journey, but there are ways to tap into your resilience, and we all have it. And I still have getting back to the question. Sorry, I kind of went off on some other stuff,
No, no, no. I love
but
it.
I still have pain. Actually,
Yeah.
it's a lot
Yeah.
better because I have learned to take better care of myself. Now I had to completely change everything. I had a doctor tell me, well, it's a good thing that you are healthy and you're not overweight because I don't know if your leg could hold you up. So
Wow.
there are things in life that it's important to me to go to the gym, not because I'm like, oh, I want to look good. Well, yeah, I want to look
Right.
good. That's not why I go. I
Yeah.
go because being able to walk and keeping my strength and being
Yeah.
able, for my leg to hold me up depends on whether or not I get to the gym. My mentality depends on whether or not I get to the gym because movement moves your mind, and it really
Yes.
does for me. And I've had
Mhm.
people say, well, how can you work out when you have CRPS, or how, or they'll text me and say, well, I can't work out because I have CRPS in my right leg. And I'm like, oh, I do too. But you know
Right.
what? There's always a way to
Yeah.
figure it out, to move your body. And,
Yep.
doctors thought I was crazy in the hospital because I asked for a pull-up bar to be installed over my bed.
I
And
love that. And you got it, right?
I got it. They're like, oh,
That is
geez.
amazing.
Okay, let's get her the bar over the bed. And I was doing
Oh,
pull ups, and I had one of my
oh,
trainer friends bring me some dumbbells. He like took some from the gym, brought them, these used dumbbells to me. And I wasn't working out because I'm like, oh, I've got to work on my biceps. No, I was
right.
moving my body because of what it did for me mentally. It made me
Yes.
feel like I was moving in the right direction. It
Yeah.
gave me confidence. It gave me a sense of feeling of that I was able to improve my
Yeah.
body, my mindset, and my health and everything that I was doing. And I really feel like everything we do is either moving us closer to our goal or
Yes.
further away. It is either hurting us or helping us. And I
In
mean,
every
every
in every
moment,
moment. Yeah.
every decision we make, whether we're
Yeah.
going to start our day, for me, whether I'm starting my day, on my knees in prayer. Right before
Yep.
this, I ran into the bathroom. I'm, trying to get ready. Right after this, I'm going for this TV interview in Dallas. And so I'm in the bathroom and I'm trying to put some makeup on and stuff. And I said, oh, I probably shouldn't have gone to my recovery meeting on Zoom. This day's so busy. And I said, but I needed it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. And so I think it's
Absolutely.
really important to know what your values are, what your
Yes.
priorities are, because
Yes.
it's easy to get thrown
Right.
off. It's
Right.
easy to follow a shiny object, but you got to
Yeah.
stay true to you and what
Absolutely. It's
matters to
interesting
you.
you say that because that was I can remember standing in my childhood bathroom. My mom we had the laundry was in the bathroom. She was doing the laundry. And my sister and I were both in sobriety. And it was the first time I ever heard that expression. She said, the way that I see it is in every moment, you're either moving towards a drink or away from a drink. And I remember that kind of startling me, like in a healthy fear, thinking like, oh my gosh, she's right. And so whether it's a drink or not a drink, or fitness, health or ill health, or a good marriage or a bad marriage, it's like defining those values and knowing what they are, just like you said, and knowing that in every moment we're moving one way or the other on that spectrum. That's
Mm-hmm.
powerful, powerful, powerful. And you're right. I mean, I think we have such a gift in sobriety, and it's like it's so just ingrained in us to always keep what matters first, keep first things first, and it's like we don't get to do the interview for the TV or the podcast interview if we're not sober, right? Like none
Mm-hmm.
of that exists. And so in a way we are forced to keep first things first. And what a
Oh,
gift.
yeah. I mean, I just had Rebecca Zung on my podcast the other day. She's an amazing lady. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. And she said one of her mantras that I'm like, ooh, I'm taking that one. I love that. She said, I guard my light with my life. And I was like, ooh, I love that, because
Yes.
what a drink does is it shuts off the light,
Yes.
and
Yes.
no
And I
light.
think it shuts off the light a lot of times for non-alcoholics. I am the least judgmental person when it comes to anybody's consumption of alcohol. All my friends, I have no
Oh,
judgment.
me either. I mean, I go out to dinner. My husband last
Yeah.
night, he has a beer every time we go out to dinner.
Yeah.
He's a total normie. He just, like, when we go out to
Yeah.
eat,
So
he
is
likes to have
my
a
husband.
beer. It's
Yeah.
kind of
It's
annoying,
crazy.
isn't
It's
it?
so normal. It is. Or they have one bite of dessert. I'm like, what is that about?
Yeah. I'm like, how do you left half a beer? What's wrong with
Right.
you?
What is wrong with you? But I do think in general, whether we're talking about, eating sugar or eating, making a healthier choice. And I'm not a big believer in perfection at all, but every choice we make is either bringing more light or it's dimming our light. Every
Mhm.
single choice, especially when we're talking about things that are affecting ourselves physiologically, because we don't get a chance to have that mental clarity or that spiritual connection when our physiology is clouded. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why I had a friend just yesterday say, wow, I think that's really great that you get up at 5 a.m. every day to start. And I'm like, well, I do that for me. I
Right. I'd be a
have that.
lunatic if I didn't.
Yeah, like
For
my
me.
family will thank me later for getting up and having that time to pray
Yes.
and journal and do my gratitude practice and
Yeah.
set my mind on my intentions and have that quiet time, so you can connect, but also have that quiet time in the morning where you can listen to the whispers, as you said, listen to your heart, and or you're pulled in a million different directions.
Yeah.
It's tempting. I want to, there are times I want to get up and check social media. I'm
Right.
human. I want to be like, oh, what's going on in the world today?
Yeah.
Um, I will check my phone for one thing, and this is just recently, and but before I wouldn't touch my phone for the first hour, but I do I got this ring. It's called the Aura ring. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm
I
not
mean, it's all the
sponsored by
rage.
them or
It's all the
anything like.
rage. I'm enamored by it. I think I might have to get one.
Well, I really like it because,
Yeah.
and when they listen to this, by the way, we both want to be sponsored. Just say no.
Right, right. Exactly. We're both big believers.
Big believers. No, but I kept getting myself in trouble because I wasn't getting enough rest. And
Yeah.
I'm really good at the grit. Like, I can say there's not a lot of things that I can say I'm good at. I can say I'm
Yeah.
good at grit. I can work hard, like, to a point where it's not good. I've ended up in the hospital. Like, it's not
Yeah.
good. And so
Yeah.
I've really had to learn to give myself grace on, overcoming being a perfectionist,
Yeah.
on beating myself up for not doing enough, or, and
Yeah.
not getting enough sleep, like
Yeah.
working my butt off. And so I had a friend of mine say, oh, I love to rest. I'm like, you love to rest? I said, I grew up
I
with
can't
rest.
imagine.
I was like, what? I was like, no, resting means quitting. Resting's for, that's the athlete in me is like,
Yeah.
resting's quitting. If you don't, and my dance teacher was like, if you want to rest this one out, your understudy will take over for you. So there was
Yeah.
like the wrong
Yeah.
mentality for me. I had to switch
For
that
sure.
to, no, there's abundance. What's meant for you will be for you, but you got to take care of you. And
Yeah.
so this ring has made it like a business strategy for me to
Yes.
got like, okay. Cause it, I guess it's the competitive part in me. It's like,
Yeah.
it tells me, good, optimal day,
Right.
great job. You got 8 hours of sleep. And I'm like, used
Yes.
to be like
You
8 hours of
want to win.
sleep. Yeah, I'm going to win
You-
versus 8 hours of sleep. Man, I got to get to work,
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
It's so funny. I always operate off of like a habit tracker. And I was telling one of my coaches that I mentor the other day, because I kept trying to put visualization in, and, a lot of times it wouldn't happen. And I'd be frustrated because I didn't, check the box, and I don't rest. And so what I told her was, this was before it was on my list. So I decided that at 2:15, when my workday was done and before I went to get the kids, that I had to check off visualization. And so what happens every day at 2:15, I'm super motivated to win on my tracker because I want to check the box. So
Yeah.
I lay down on the couch and I shut my eyes and I quote unquote visualize, but I fall asleep every day because I'm so tired by that time because I've been going since 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But it gets me to rest because I want to check the box.
That's
So,
awesome.
yes.
That's
So
awesome.
sometimes people like us, you just need to create those things where we also feel like we're competing with our rest.
Yes. Yeah. I was competing for my rest. And I look
Yeah.
back and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm on a winning streak. I'm on a win,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally.
Yeah, I'm the same. And I got sticky notes on my desk. I love checking stuff off. I don't know if it's
Yes.
because I'm just very pragmatic or maybe competitive but I feel like you totally get it.
Yes, I get it on every level. And, this has been amazing. I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you've got the busiest day, and this has just been such a gift. You have no
Oh,
idea. I can't say this about almost, I don't even know anyone. Like, finding you on social media, maybe a year or two ago, and just feeling an instant connection. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're going to do work together, that
yeah.
there's going to be face-to-face work, that there's going to be coaching women. Like, I just feel
Mhm.
that and know that in my heart of hearts. And to be able to just sit here and hear your story face to face and be able to share that with the world, such a
Mm.
gift.
Oh, you
Such
know what? You are such a gift. And I know that we are going to do more together because as you were saying that, I got goosebumps.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
always, I know that may sound kind of crazy or
No.
whatever, but that's like always confirmation to me. Like,
100%.
yes, yeah,
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
I
you are such a gift in my life. I mean, I think about you all the time. Every time I see one of your posts pop up, it just brings me joy. And we even had COVID around the same time. And
Yes, that's
it
right.
was really
Yeah.
encouraging to get through that time and just
Yes.
have your updates and
Yes.
so
I
I can't wait to hug your neck. I'm
I feel the same way. I feel the
so
same
grateful
way.
for this opportunity to get to share with
Same.
your incredible community. And so thank you so much.
Absolutely. Tell me this before we wrap up. Where can people find you? Where can they find your book? What's the name of the book or the name of the website? All the things. Where can they find
Yeah,
everything?
you know what? Let me give your audience something special. I'll arrange this right now. Um, because I want them to learn the resilience and not just hear a story and be maybe, well, hopefully y'all are inspired. I really hope so. I hope
Oh
you
my
have
gosh.
hope after
There's
hearing
no
this,
way they can't be.
but I want them to walk away with the tools. So if you just text me at 818-214-7378, just text the word grit, GRIT, and I'll give you, it's just a free download and it's how to tap into your superpower of resilience and thrive. And it breaks down this 5-part pacer method that I have. And I've just tell you real quick, somebody the other day, I got a message and they're like, is this a machine or is this, then somebody, is this a robot? And I'm like, no, it's me. Sometimes I kind of feel like a robot, but no, it's me. That's why it
Right.
took me 2 days to get back to you because I read every single message, and
Yes.
so it is me. But if you want the download, just text that word and then
I
tell
love it.
me, that you heard it on the podcast so we can connect and
Yeah.
amberlylago.com is my website. My book is True Grit and Grace. My podcast is True Grit and Grace. And so I just, thank you again for letting me come on here and share with your audience.
Thank you so much. This has been the biggest gift. Thanks so much.